And thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. Recently, as you know, the president signed this pact. We have to get used to the acronym. It's AFCFTA. In other words, Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. No. Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Yeah, I got it now. It's not agreement, it's area. African Continental Free Trade Area Treaty. So, yeah, that's been signed recently. It's been about a year since the idea was mooted, and then the president, as you were aware, you've been following the news, signed it recently. It involves 55 countries in Africa, but I think Eritrea is yet to sign. But all the others have signed, and it's all about developing trade in Africa. Now, it's a work in progress. It's not as if, first of all, in terms of the population, the business population, we're looking at something like, 1.3 billion. 1.3 billion African citizens. So that's a wide market. Just reminds me of the population of India. And that would be a businessman's dream. But we are being told, first of all, the president even said it, and we are told that, well, there still are challenges that have to be faced. And to help us explain all of this and put it in context, what exactly it means, because this reminds me of the other lovely, perhaps lofty idea of a common currency in Africa. If we could have that, if the Naira or whatever we agreed upon could be spent anywhere in Africa, and I think that is the objective, at least theoretically, that would be lovely. But of course, you know, it will have to be worked. What kind of working is going to be necessary for this? The president himself has advised us that you've got to get the buy-in of the private sector and civil societies. And the president has said that we've been spending the last, year or so consulting as appropriate. Now, the experts who know much more about this, and we shall get to understand the implications of this. We've got Majid Jamil, Executive Editor, Upshot Reports. He's a financial journalist of long standing. Thank you very much, Majid, for coming on.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
Indeed. And every time I see the name, I feel like putting Alaji in front of it. You didn't? Mukhtar Mohammed. He's a financial analyst. Thank you very much, Mukhtar, for coming on.
It's a pleasure being here. Good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning. Majid, I'll start with you, if I may. It's a lovely idea for business, for development. You have this giant market, almost homogeneous market, but it's going to take some doing. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, you guys have been involved in all these financial, aspects of our economic life. Is it an idea on paper, or is it something that we can really, look forward to in a reasonably short time?
Yeah, I'm not excited about the CFTA agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. I mean,
well, it's a pact now that it's been signed.
Yeah, whatever acronym they have given to it,
yeah,
and to encourage free trade amongst the 55 African countries that are members of the AU, African Union. And it would have been a very great idea, as muted by the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, in March 2018, precisely about a few years ago. But my fears about it is I liken this to what America did for Africans under the African Growth and Opportunities Act, which was to assist some local industries to be able to bring their goods freely to American companies. Now, the difference between that and this, between AGOA and AFCTA, is that now this will open up, or rather, like you earlier pointed out, the 1.3 billion people population in Africa, it will make it just one market instead of saying Nigeria with its about 200 million people, and South Africa with 53 million, Ghana with 26, Madagascar with 20. I mean, instead of
you have one
you have
market
one
size.
market size. But then the problem is before the President Muhammadu Buhari has been very hesitant in signing this agreement because Nigeria was the 53rd country, while Benin Republic, our troublesome neighbors, in terms of the cross-border trade, was the 54th to sign, the remaining just Eritrea. So the president made a statement. He said, this free trade should not lead to unfair trade.
Free trade must also be fair trade.
That is it. Free trade, yeah, that's the word. Free trade must also be fair trade. But how do we achieve that when we see that a lot of stuff are coming in? 70% of the imports that go into Republic of Benin are meant for Nigeria. So this has been on for several years. Recall there was a time when Obasanjo was president, he shot our brothers, and the then president Matthew Kereku was on his knees, caps in hand, begging Obasanjo then that, I mean, the economy of the Republic of Benin will collapse. So now that we are being party to this treaty as a nation, and I think we must get our acts right and also look into the recommendations of the panels set up by the president to review Nigeria's participation in this whole arrangement. So those are very, very key.
Okay. Mukhtar, it's free, if you look at the title, Continental Free Trade, Africa Continental Free Trade Area, this suggests that there won't be issues of, well, of tariffs as bad as we have now, as complicated is the word I wanted to use, really, not bad, as complicated as it is now, because essentially it'll be seen like one market. How difficult is this going to be, or can you just see everybody agreeing that for the purposes of business, you can see it as just one country. After all, if it were Nigeria, there's a difference. If anything is manufactured in Bauchi, there are no tariffs for it to be sold in Lagos, for the brought into Bendel, you know, that kind of thing. That's the way. Are you optimistic that indeed we're going to arrive there?
Well, first of all, we're starting with a tariff reduction of about 90%, and that is good. The Import-Export Bank
the idea is to bring it
90%,
yeah,
for the first install.
Okay.
So we still have that 10% for every nations to balance up.
Okay.
Then the Export-Import Bank of Africa had also decided that because of this drastic drop in tariff, they are going to put in about $1 billion, especially in the manufacturing sector also, so that the reduction in tariff will not be so hit business so much. Like I said, that is one. Then, but when you look at the whole deal entirely, I'm actually a bit different from him. I think I'm excited about it because for once it will force us to do what we have to do. The local champion that we've been all the years, I mean, is beginning to show that we are just local champion in terms of population. Because if we are local champion in terms of economy, we should be the people driving for such a deal. Because when you said, like you said, a population of about, I mean, a customer base of about 1.3 billion, and Nigeria alone has 200 million. That alone is an advantage. But unfortunately, because we refuse to do what we have to do, we will be the one. This is the largest trade agreement ever after the World Trade Organization agreement. This is going to be the largest free zone agreement ever, trade-free zone agreement. So why should Nigeria as a country not be involved in such thing? It has to do decade of unseriousness on our part. We want to continue doing business the normal way, want to continue being the giant of Africa in terms of production of crude oil. This is where we begin to see the real GDP. And once the real GDP comes into play, then it will touch the real Nigeria. Employment is going to be boundless. So we won't be shouting of unemployment rate. So a Nigerian man, I think, look, I can get employment in Ghana, I can get employment in Madagascar, I can do very well in the tourist area because Nigeria is not giving me the opportunity to move. So you as a country, you are forced to begin to create opportunity for your own brand. Because let's take the textile industry for example.
Yes.
Ghanaians, yes, Ghanaians are doing very well there. But the CBN has looked at it, like the CBN has a foresight that when we sign this agreement, if we don't revive our textile industry, then it will be dead forever.
Because, and also, how does, take a common example that most Nigerians know, Dunlop having to close shop and move over to Ghana, among other businesses. Now, with this kind of, if this were in place, would that still have happened?
It may not, because it has to do with cost of production, it has to do with cost of doing business. So every businessman is looking at, what is my cost of doing business? If my cost of doing business and production, if I get my variable, my percentage, I say, look, if I be in Ghana, I can still bring product to Nigeria, I'll make 10%. And if I'm in Ghana, my production level and the cost level will come to like 5%, bring it to Nigeria at 10%, so I make 5%, I'm fine. Overhead cost has gone down. Or in Nigeria, I will make 2%, but my overhead cost is 8%. It has to do with, you look at the variables. Now, two things come to play. Now, if you're in Ghana, is Ghana your customer base? It might not be your customer base. Then you begin to say, okay, I need to make Nigeria my customer base. Okay. Then a company in Nigeria will begin to say, okay, look, can we come to, can we see how we can liaise together, competitive advantage, bring in your own goods, and I bring my own infrastructure. So the challenge we have here is we've refused to do what we ought to do, but now we will be forced to. So that's my own, is in the short term, is to our disadvantage.
Okay, in the short term.
In the short term.
How, Majid, how is this whole idea impacted by the fact that there are going to be different economic policies from country to country, or will all of that be harmonized as well? And because the president was sort of emphasized that we have to get, all the countries, we have to get buy-in of our own private sector, our own manufacturing sector. And people have always been complaining, experts have always bemoaned the fact that there are very few finished goods in Africa, at least in our country, very few finished goods. We still have to send it abroad, for example, send our cocoa as one instance, for example, get back the Cadbury chocolate, and how does all of this work?
Yes, like Mukhtar said, on the long run, it could be to our advantage. But I'm looking at now and our thought process, our bureaucracy, and what we have been going through all these years. We have several companies in Nigeria that have been operating on diesel generators.
That's a factor.
That's a factor, because if a company in Ghana, for example, I mean, you have Cadbury, for example, in Ghana, you have Cadbury in Nigeria. Their cost of production is far cheaper, but the market in Nigeria is bigger. Now, the same, Paul Kagame of Rwanda that is proposing this knows that, I mean, he has been able to, I mean, revolutionize the small-scale industries in this country in such a way that the cottage industries are able to process their raw materials, unlike in Nigeria where we export most of our raw materials. If you don't add value to the raw materials we export, then it subjects your processes to price variations and fluctuations. Now, like you just mentioned, the issue of cocoa being exported to other countries and the raw form, whereas if you refine and process and export, the value appreciates. Now, if we are trading amongst ourselves in Africa, whereby a country, I mean, a company in South Africa, for example, has a finished product processed, unlike for some of us in Nigeria that we're exporting raw, the value addition from that company in South Africa could be, if it's exporting $1 million worth of goods to Nigeria, Nigeria is exporting same quantity at about $100,000 to probably another country. So you can see the difference. But if we can get our processes right, Nigeria stands to benefit. But then that's why I said I'm not excited, because we know ourselves until we begin to change all this. That's why East African countries took more advantage of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act more than Nigeria,
right, yes.
despite the fact that we have the population here. And the Chinese companies see Nigeria as a mass market, I mean, in Africa. So Nigeria remains the first destination because of the size of our population. But
yes,
we are not taking advantage of that. Even if we process our goods and we sell amongst ourselves, we can still do well. But we rather send our crude oil abroad, get a company in even Cote d'Ivoire or South Africa to refine and bring back to us. When we have 4 refineries that are idle, that's just one example.
Additionally, you hear of foreign importers, receivers of our export, talking about, and where this question is leading to is that, look, trying to fix ourselves, organize ourselves, are we not going to be in competition with, for example, going back to the cocoa example, you find cocoa manufacturers abroad now saying that, yeah, we're sensitive to the hue and cry, so we're going to come into Africa, we're going to go to the farms, we're going to go to the cooperatives, we're going to make sure that there's a fair price. So they've set up a sort of competition. Now, will this be wiped out, or will we now be in competition to make, so that it won't be as much worth the while as it is currently? Can we actually fix ourselves? The president spoke about challenges that have to be overcome, and he said things like, issues of security, issues of petty corruption. Well,
the president spoke about the involvement of the private sector, and I'll mention just 2 examples. The Nigerian breweries, for example, now gets a lot of its raw materials from Nigerian farmers by encouraging them, as in like what the CBN is doing with the anchor borrowership and off-takers. Now they give these farmers the incentive. They go to IITA to do a research on improved varieties. They give to farmers, and they guarantee the returns that come from these farmers into Nigeria.
And even seeking substitution of materials.
That is
like
it.
Maize,
then Nigerian Tobacco Company too is doing a similar thing for farmers, whereby they do a research into high yielding tobacco species and give it to certain farmers. They look at areas where these crops are grown in a high quantity and the yield. So they have this arrangement. So I think Dangote is also doing a similar thing with tomato farmers and rice farmers because of its rice processing mill. So if we can get, that's why the president mentioned the involvement of the private sector as very germane to the success of the advantage Nigeria can derive from this this initiative.
Mukhtar, just so that we can understand it, when the president speaks about talking to his peers that, look, we're going to have to get the buy-in of the private sector in our various countries. So why wouldn't the private sector buy in?
I think maybe the president have always spoken to a few private sectors that didn't buy in. Maybe he's using that because I didn't see him meeting organized private sector. Maybe he must have met them behind the scene.
He said after Nigeria has been consulting up and down, as it were.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe I've consulted with them up and down. And let me give an instance. I'm going to use 2 key sectors. We use the conglomerate in Nigeria. I'm using a Nigerian fund conglomerate like Dangote Group itself. Its cement companies. It has started the expansion in Cameroon, Kenya, and going to other, even as far as Algeria. It's already doing that expansion. Now, that is to our advantage. Secondly, let's look at the service sector. We have a service sector like Jumia that was listed recently in the New York Stock Exchange. It's in Nigeria.
That's the online shopping. Our own answer to Amazon.
Amazon. It's a Nigerian product. Conga.
Conga, you know.
It's a Nigerian product. But what we are looking at as a country, we are not looking at services that we can render. All the president is looking at, all his team is looking at, they're just looking at goods. What of the service sector that Nigeria will be the key beneficiary in the service sector?
It's interesting you brought that in because this goes to the area of ICT and all of that.
Yeah.
But is there not a big difference in the sense that, just for example, just mentioning Amazon, they tend, Amazon is all over the world, you know, apart from America where they tend to move American goods, you know, there's the high quality. I don't know that Jumia is in that same situation because a lot of the stuff that Jumia, Konga, and all the others, you know, even Alibaba, for example, it moves essentially Chinese goods. You know, Amazon is essentially moving American goods. So when you mentioned, I was excited by mentioning some Nigerian online shops. But in terms of services, is it not much different?
No, I don't think it's much different.
Okay.
If you see, Jumia is expanding to other parts of Africa.
Yes.
They're even expanding some parts of Africa. They're even trying to use the money system type of money transfer.
Okay.
And what Western Union and others are doing. So they're really branching into other areas. But what I'm saying, just one of those areas I'm saying that. Now, where I think we didn't get it right was we know we are the market. We are the market. So what we should have been fighting for initially, we just need two things. Competitive advantage, which we already have in terms of population. Then the next competitive advantage we were thinking about, you have to then look, we signed this deal, but the secretariat of this place must be located in Africa, in Nigeria, because we have the largest market.
But the secretariat is actually, the president was congratulating Ghana.
You
know, for being the secretariat.
Ghana is the first secretariat, and it's going to be there for a while. Now, we missed out in that, because when the president was saying, it took us 1 year. I thought even if you are doing your homework, you should be negotiating better deal for yourself on this African trade area deal. We never took advantage. Remember that they went to as far as Russia, they went to other parts of the continent. No Nigerian president. The only president we have was Nigeria was the former president Olusegun Obasanjo, which keeps shouting right from day one that we have to sign this deal. But we've gone past that stage now. What we should be doing as a nation is to begin to see how we can develop our key infrastructure. And when we talk of key infrastructure, we always also have one key infrastructure that we can do. If we get power right, the Mambila Plateau is there, about 7,000 megawatts. Then we begin to look at distribution. Now, what are we not looking at? We are not looking at Aeron in South Africa. That's one of the biggest power plants in Africa. It's generating over 60,000 megawatts of electricity in South Africa. Sometimes even has reserve. Are we thinking of Aeron coming to partner? Because we keep saying that the challenge we have in Nigeria is that the technical partners that were supposed to partner with these power companies have all gone back because of, you know, we had a challenge that had to come with exchange rate regime. So all this challenge will not be there again, because what we are looking at, if Aeron is coming from South Africa to help us, at this thing, they're going to collect money in Naira. So again, the other larger picture we're not looking at the larger picture that this also will slow down the rate of intervention of CBN in the forex market, whereby we will now have a means of exchange. Will be, I use my Naira, you use your own currency. We are not being pressurized. Like somebody said, when somebody said, this is somebody, he said, have you ever seen they go to any leader in Africa, any corrupt leader in Africa, and they search his house, and they see that country currency? He said most of the currency you see there are dollars.
Oh dear, oh dear. How many billion, how many horrible million Naira was recently confiscated or, you know, ceded to the state? You know.
Let's not. Go to Sudan. The Sudanese president, the former president, is millions of dollars.
Al-Bashir.
Al-Bashir, dollars. You will never see where they said, oh, there was a million of Ghana cedis or South African rand. Or no, it's always dollar.
So the African leaders themselves maybe don't actually buy in mentally.
Look, let me tell you,
or psychologically.
We are talking about. It's just that Nigerian, we don't bring out issues. You know, we signed the ECOWAS Liberation Trade Treaty. Now, in that ECOWAS Liberation Trade Treaty, we're talking about ease of doing business within ECOWAS region. And within it, that means our goods and services can go there, go in. We've just paid the tariff and everything. We didn't agree on uniform tariff. We're going towards that, and then we have the eco currency, which is supposedly the currency for the West Africa.
Which, on paper, seems like it will sort this problem out.
Yes, after we refused to sign the trade agreement, we hurriedly gathered our West African brothers and said, look, eco, it must come on stream 2020. So let's leave that. That's the topic for that. But what I'm saying is that Benin and Burkina Faso, that are even our neighbors, do not allow our own cement. They'd rather have their import of cement. They get it from China. You can imagine if this treaty is signed now, which is free for a Dangote group or a Bois group to have cement company in Republic of Benin and Burkina Faso, because you can no more restrict them. But we want to ask, like he said, the bureaucracy. Will all these nations just be open? It's just like what we said the last time we were here. We said no nation allow its currency to just float.
Yes.
So even when this trade treaty comes to play, a lot of nations will still try to protect their own. They'll come up with a lot of, they could say, oh, it's not meeting quality control, it's not meeting this. There are other ways to handle some of the issues that you think, while you get your house in order and get prepared. And for me, that is where Nigerians should begin to look at. And once you have a good minister that comes on trade and investment, you have a good minister in there in the area of finance, you have a good CBN, you have a good monetary policy, and then added with a fiscal policy. It's good. I was just listening to, Segun Awolowo was saying that treaty agreement alone is going to create about 500,000 jobs for Nigeria. That treaty alone.
At least
in the non-oil sector.
In the non-oil sector, on paper.
On paper, yeah. Everything's on the paper.
Everything's on paper for now.
Everything's on, even this treaty that we are shouting about has not come to street. They have not come online yet. Even each country is also going to. Every country has its advantage and disadvantage.
And so
everybody is trying to put his house in order. That's why I say it's good for us. Maybe finally we'll decide to not pay lip service to infrastructural development, will not pay lip service to service, will not pay lip service to education. We'll begin to say, look, we have to do this, because if we want to be continue to be viable in Africa, we need to do this. So for me, it's just that it's going to put our government on our toe in the short term. But in the short term, we're not going to benefit, like I agree. In the long term, it could be to our advantage if we put our house in order.
And I think that's the operative. We'll take a break now. We'll pick up on this conversation when we come back. And of course, we'll include your calls. Stay with us, please. Okay, welcome back, and we're looking at the African Continental Free Trade Area Pact, treaty, agreement, whatever you want to call it, that has been signed. And as our guests Majid Jamiu and Mukhtar Mohammed have been saying, it's an excellent idea, but it's going to need working. Even the president said that, and it's all premised on the on our getting our act together. And I think that is the big matter. Because look, even in our political life, even in our national life, we have heard that it's not going to be business as usual. And I think that's an aspect of getting our act together. And so, I don't know, that's a work in progress. We are working on that with varying degrees of progress depending on who you ask. Now, this one will have to be done for the benefit of the community that we are a part of. The president has spoken about issues of petty corruption, having to be overcome. It remains to be seen how well we're going to do and how soon. It's because that this treaty has been signed. It's not going to be that next week our problems are over.
Yeah.
As you guys have said, we're going to take some time now to come and explain it and woo the private sector, woo civil society. But the good thing about it is that it does produce this giant market. And we're talking about, what, roughly the size of India, for example. Somewhere in the region of 1.3 billion, potential buyers. But when we say that, how about the people in the rural areas? How many people will, and when you look at it in Africa, this 1.3 billion figure, it sounds excellent, but can you really look at every single last one of those and say that that's the size of it? Or might there be a sort of a realistic cutoff that, look, marginally, some people might not be part of it? Or is this a thing that will benefit all?
No policy is designed to take care of everybody. Like we have about 22 million people living in Lagos, for example. But most companies target just about 1 million or 2 million of the Lagos population for its markets. And the United Nations did a study on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and came up with a report just last week that the signing of this agreement by 54 out of the 55 countries has the potential of improving on Africa's GDP by about 52 to 53% by 2022, just about 3 years, if well implemented. So, and that it also has growth potentials in terms of providing more employment for people, just like Segun Awolowo projected that Nigeria could be gaining 500,000 more jobs as a result of this development. But like Mukhtar said, we need to get our processes right, improve infrastructure. I mean, the way our grid continues to collapse on a daily basis. We have about 7,000 potential megawatts of electricity hanging at the Mambila belt.
We're still working on our rail systems.
On our rail system, because we need to move these goods in a seamless manner. Most people go to Apapa, those who are in Apapa area, you take your vehicle now, you park at Sele or Ijesha bus stop in Lagos, and you take a bike to to Kirikiri and all those other areas.
Sorry for interrupting you. Indeed, we're going to come back to these are some of the problems that have to be worked out. But Mr. George has called in. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning. Thank you for calling in.
And good morning to Jamil and Mukhtar.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Uncle Yori, I see this trade pact as an impetus that will ginger us into what we should really be. We cannot be sleeping giants. If we call ourselves giants, we must be assertive and act as giants. We are too slow, I'm sorry to say, we are too slow in taking certain decisions and doing certain things. Look at power. We have so much manpower in this country riding Okada. Some of them are graduates, most of them have other skills. Because of power, they cannot exercise it. We cannot be a dumping ground for other countries when we have so much to export, and we are just there, a term of 4 years will come and go. You should do any form of measurement, only very little or sometimes nothing has been made in terms of progress. So if you see a smaller country in your same trade zone trying to outsmart you for failing to do what you were supposed to do, we are most likely to sit up. I can't see a situation now where Benin is now trying to become the giant of Africa before our very eyes, and we will not do something. So initially it may not be as pleasant as we want it to be, but in the course of time, maybe things like this will force us to be scrutinizing people who want to lead us. decisions? Are you capable of manning an MDA effectively that will bring results that were acceptable to this free trade zone, that will not let us down? So if we can't do it locally, I see it as an impetus to wake us up.
Indeed.
And do the needful.
Indeed. Thank you very much for calling in. Indeed. And he brought up an issue there. You see, it goes back to the electorate. He said this might lead us to maybe from now on consider the kind of questions we want to ask those who would lead us. I don't know that the electorate asks those kind of questions locally, but be that as it may, let me not dwell on that. He also touched on injurious trade practices. Because he was speaking about dumping, for instance. No matter how noble this idea, and it does require discipline for us to look away from some injurious trade practices and patronize our own, buy our own. Oftentimes, that can be difficult, even if it's not patriotic, simply because people are able to dump goods on us. Maybe do things on the same quality that we are able to do, or perhaps even better, for less. How would this affect that? Mukta?
It will affect that because cost of doing business in Nigeria is high. We keep talking about cost of doing business.
So that will always keep the price,
that will always keep
at an uncompetitive level.
Because that's why I'm saying that we have a lot to do.
Yeah, that's where patriotism comes in.
Patriotism comes in, but then patriotism is based on value added chain also. You must look at patriotism in terms of value. Because I'm patriotic doesn't mean I'll see a good value of 10 naira and say because I'm patriotic I'm going to buy it for 20 naira.
This is the challenge.
Yeah, so it has to come with value. What value? Now, like I said.
And you seem to be suggesting that the way things are now at this moment, it's going to be very difficult for us to be competitive.
No, it's going to be very difficult because even the cost of borrowing is high. You're talking about cost of borrowing of 25 to 27%. Your cost of doing business is also high. In terms of infrastructure, you have to power your diesel and like he said. So there's a lot of things that will make us not be able to compete favorably with our peers. But we must not take this saying that this cost of doing business only high in Nigeria. The other African countries that's going to suffer same too. We are even smaller than us. So what we need to be doing is to see, like I said, it's based on demand and supply.
Okay, one moment, please. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Mazi Okorafo, good morning.
Good morning, Sayori.
Thank you for calling me. Yeah.
Morning.
Thank God for this assignment or for the agreement. It will now help us, like the investors, the manufacturers, the African, made in African countries.
I know.
Yes, because you see, the issue of African content is very, very important. Because if you go now into the market, you take statistics, or that's a research carried out by the Okrafo Global Investment Management and Development. You discover that most of the things we have in this country are being imported from Europe. So if we can now make use of this, our made in African content, it will help us, at least it will create employment, and it will also make all this issue of people rushing to Europe through this happier way will stop. Because they have created employment for them. It will now make the industries existing in the country to be what? To be viable. Like you already know now, our textile industries, we are facing a lot of problems. Not only the textile industries, like our storage facilities, which is one of the major problems we're having. But at least with this trade agreement, Ghana, they have solid foundation in terms of storage facilities. It will help Nigeria to borrow a lead from that place with all this free trade movement. Thank you very much. I pray that the authority concerned will make sure it works very well.
Indeed.
Have a blessed day in Lagos.
Thank you very much, Mazi Okorafo. Majid, picking up on that idea about, at the end of the day, the forces of demand and supply will still, reign. Although we've said that, look, it can't apply to everything, and in that light, experts, financial people have said, no. In the case of our currency, for example, you can't let the thing just float freely like that. But when it comes to goods, is it not going to be a bit more difficult? Because Mukta has just explained that the value is also going to be involved. No matter how patriotic I am, no matter how much I understand that ultimately this is what is good for us. Buying Nigeria is a campaign we've had, but will this affect that in any way? Because at the end of the day, dumped goods, unless you can keep them from coming in, porous borders, I think that's where you even started from. That this is what has made the president or previous presidents being a bit reluctant to sign up to this. How can we scale that particular hurdle?
Yes, no, the pressure will be on Nigeria. Nigeria has the largest population in Africa, and we have that market. It's very, very attractive, and because of the kind of style of our livelihood. So the pressure will rather be on Nigeria. I can see them throwing a party in Benin Republic and Togo, for example, now, jubilating. Yes, because it's lifting the restriction, but now it's for us to improve on our locally made goods. Now, before now, it's difficult to get even ordinary tissue rolls, tissue papers that are of quality from Nigeria. But now we have some companies coming in to set up their businesses, and we are getting improved as little as tissue papers. Now we have companies set up in Nigeria that are producing toothpicks that used to be imported. Well, we still have some of these imports coming in.
Yeah.
But we are improving on the packaging. You see some products from Nigeria, and you are wowed. Like,
yes,
wow,
yes.
this is a Nigerian
That's
product.
the impetus George was talking about earlier.
So it will challenge us to improve, because if we don't do that, because the 90% waiver on tariffs that which this new agreement allows will get our companies to sit up, and our private sector to also sit up. So because the onus will be on us to improve on our services and our products.
Maybe that probably adds meaning to what the president said, that we're going to have to court the buy-in of the private sector and the civil society in our various countries. This is not something that, it's not a government thing at the end of the day. Joshua in Irewolide, good morning, sir.
Okay, good morning, and I greet your guests.
Thank you for calling in.
I just want to add this to it. I think they are doing justice to the topic. But our fears notwithstanding, I think it's time for us to face reality that this African thing has come to stay. We have been a common market informally. If you look at all the activities of smuggling that has been going on across African borders and all that, we've been practicing all these things unofficially. So if we now decide to make it official, of course, fears will be there. Somebody would have an advantage for a start, and some would have some disadvantages for a start. So let's look at our disadvantages and say, okay, we are starting with all these disadvantages. We are hoping to work upon them to improve ourselves. Now, whatever competition that is coming on us will force us to do things right. I don't think we're ever going to grow very well using our internal advantage as a country. I think some of these disadvantages, some of these things we're afraid of, some of these things we think we are not doing well, let us put emphasis on ourselves. And I think they will force us to come out of our shell and begin to adopt world best practices, which is something that we cannot sit back and deny. So I'm excited that at least this is happening. Let us, for once, start with our advantages and face the world squarely. Nigeria should do things well, right?
Yeah.
So I would just say it's been happening unofficially.
Yeah.
Now we are making it official. So let's be excited about it.
Indeed.
And I think it will work well for us in the end. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for calling in, especially if we stick at it. And I suppose George spoke about it'll be an impetus, and he's just said the same thing differently. I suppose one of the things it could sort of guide us towards is each nation within the community focusing on its own area of comparative advantage. There will be advantages, there will be expertise, there will be experience and knowledge in certain areas. You gentlemen have spoken about not just the physical hard goods, also services. I was just thinking here, for long it's been said when it comes to manufacturing, Nigerian cables, are said to be better, it is known by those who are in that line of business, than a lot of stuff. I don't want to mention any country so as not to be disparaging, but a lot of stuff that comes in. I suppose that kind of an idea, if anybody has an advantage in cocoa production, maybe they will strategically know that that's where we should focus. Anybody on palm oil, you know, that kind of thing. Do you think that, is this the kind of thing that we will be led into if we sort of get it right? Areas will come, so that you, I don't know, it'll be, if we can get MIA, made in Africa, you know. That's the whole idea, made in Africa. But that, by the way, how does this affect, if we make things so good, we want to put made in Nigeria? I'm talking about made in Nigeria cables, for example. Will it not become made in Africa cables or that kind of a thing? Or those are little itty-bitty things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things?
It don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Definitely, you know who's in whichever market. Like if you look at the EU, you don't see every good.
So, I beg your pardon. I'll let you go back. Benga in Abuja has been holding on for a while. Good morning, Benga.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Yori.
Good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Benga from Abuja.
Sure.
This is a good development for Africa and for Nigeria if you can take the advantage of our population and the massive or numerous youth we have in Nigeria. Our labor market is rich enough. We have all the resources to be able to dominate the market, the African market. But there are to settle. Number one is infrastructure. Infrastructure key textile industry in Nigeria because the cost of production, lack of power, good road, and the rest of things kill textile industry and also other agro-allied industry. So the government can come with intervention programs to support the manufacturing sector, especially the textile, agri, outside places where we have competitive advantage to move our goods outside Nigeria. We'll be able to dominate the market and win-win for us. Okay. And I'm looking at it. Look at the small-scale industry. Is the engine room of China's economy. They offering Nigeria high interest rate. I mean, talk of no power and the rest of things. So if they can come up with a program to help the SME also, it will also go a long way in making sure that we get the full benefit of this system and also be able to get the best from the market. Our economy will go for it. And the millions of youth roaming about the street will be employed. Okay. But if that, we need to know what our government has. What do they have on ground to make sure we align this thing? It's on paper. We need to be the reality. And I pray that the coming Minister of Industry, Minister of Finance, Minister of Labor, and the rest of the people work together to actualize this, especially in the agri sector and textile industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Majid, everybody's speaking about, that gentleman just finished speaking about teeming youth. Everybody knows about the population advantage in Nigeria. But surely it has to be skilled. He left out the Minister of Education. He left out Minister of Education. Because it's one thing to have a sea of heads, a sea of human beings. But I suppose what we need them to be, we don't need them to all be laborers, they need to be educated, they need to be skilled so that they can add value. How important do you think that component is to it? It's one thing to say we got 1.3 billion in this particular project, 200 of which come out of Nigeria, but how qualitative?
Well, one of the advantages on the long run is to see more investments coming in, because some of these investors sees Nigeria as a place where they can make quick returns on investment, like
simply because the numbers are there.
That is it. I mean, look at MTN came to Nigeria and they were wowed.
It worked for MTN because everybody, illiterate or not illiterate, wanted a phone.
Yes,
and they brought it down to where they could afford it.
Yes, and now, as when we start improving on our value chain, when we start exporting processed and finished goods, then more industries, more cottage industries will come up. It will open up more employment opportunities. It's not a situation where competitors will do more. Then, if we get our infrastructure right, India is a call center for most companies in UK and Europe and America. and a lot of people are involved. You are calling a company in America, but the call center, the person is talking to you, is based in India because of the level to which they have developed their infrastructure, their technology. So we cannot also make that, I mean, a knowledge zone in Nigeria, an economic zone, whereby we have we don't depend just on the oil sector and the non-oil sector. We also depend on services sector to improve on it, because it's all in the agreement, whereby 90% has been taken off now in terms of tariff. The remaining 10%, which is on very sensitive areas, military areas, and what have you, which will be phased out in due course. So Nigeria must take advantage of this initiative.
Abe in Joburg, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you very much for calling in. Good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Majid, and the other gentleman in the studio.
Mukhtar Mohammed.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Mukhtar, good morning.
Morning.
Uncle Yori, I'm going to digest a bit. Like the other callers have said, it is a welcome development for African as a whole and Nigeria. But there is one thing that the Nigerian government really needs to talk about. I wish the Nigerian government can involve the Nigerians in diaspora in this project, because a lot of Nigerian youth are also in diaspora who are not doing anything, who are jobless. As time goes on, they need to start calling those kind of youth also to be engaged in Nigeria. Otherwise, we are sitting on a time bomb. Because, like the other caller said, we really lack infrastructure in Nigeria for certain things to work out for us. This kind of a new development. So the kind of infrastructure we have in South Africa, if we can bring a little bit of infrastructure of South Africa to Nigeria, then this kind of a project is going to really work for us as a Nigeria. Then look at the issue of power. The South Africa is generating over 20,000 megawatts of power, which they are able to give power to Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Lesotho. Nigeria is going to be generating 10,000 and will be celebrating sometimes even less than 7,000 megawatts of power, which is not even good enough. It's not even enough for the whole trip in South Africa to import. People are used to put point. So it's a welcome development if the Nigerian government can really take advantage of this kind of a project. And for the two of them, especially because South Africa and Nigeria, both of them are very strategic in terms of the location, in terms of population, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of so many things. Even in terms of we are into each other. So I believe Nigeria can really copy a lot from South Africa for this kind of project to come into play. And we also both in diaspora and within the country, we can benefit from this kind of project, so that most of the youth who are living without the streets in Nigeria, they have something to fall back to. And especially like the other caller said, the SME. The SME is one of the areas to take away youth from the streets. They need to develop the youth. We need to promote the SMEs in Nigeria. When we borrow money in Nigeria, the kind of digit they are using as a what do you call it, as interest is too much. South Africa, if you borrow money in South Africa, is 7%, 9%. But Nigeria, they ask you to go and bring 20%, 25%. Somebody who has never worked before, why do you expect him to get 25% or to charge 25% interest rate? So this kind of opportunity, I believe, if we can take advantage of because of our population, we are going to really benefit from it. Indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Everything will depend on how we go about this. The president seems, optimistic enough. Some of the caveats he has said are there. These are things that we have to work on. But generally speaking, it's a lovely idea. Once, and the guests have called in, they've called in to say that, especially Mr. George and other people have said it differently, this should be the impetus. It'll now, as it were, ginger us to take advantage of the potential. It might not be exactly tomorrow, but hey, even the longest journey starts with the first step. I think I want to thank you, Mr. Majid Jamiu and Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, for sharing your perspectives on this and enlightening the whole subject, as it were. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
So that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folari. Bye-bye for now.